Now let's dive into DNS and DHCP. So DNS, or Domain Name System, and DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, are critical services that allow for seamless use of networks. DNS translates human-friendly names or domain names to IP addresses and vice versa. And then DHCP assigns IP addresses to devices on the network. So here's a DNS diagram that I quickly put together. So let's think of the DNS protocol as a phone book. DNS acts much like a phone book for the internet. So when you type in a domain name like example.com, the DNS server translates that into an IP address like 8.8.8.8. And then that computer or user will use that to identify each other over the network, the domain name and the IP address. So in this example, the user makes a request of the domain name to the DNS server. The DNS server resolves that host name or the domain name to an IP address. And then that user will then make a HTTPS request to 8.8.8.8, which is a web server. And then the HTTPS response will be sent back to the user. So essentially, the user sends a request for example.com to the DNS server. The DNS server resolves it, and then the user is able to send a HTTPS request to 8.8.8.8, which is a web server, and then receives an HTTPS response. Now on to DHCP. So DHCP simplifies network management by automatically assigning IP addresses to devices as they join the network. This dynamic allocation means administrators don't need to manually assign static IP addresses to each device. This is an example of how DHCP works. A DHCP discover packet is sent to the DHCP server requesting for an IP address for the new user that just joined the network. The DHCP server will then respond with a DHCP offer offering an IP address. And then that user will then respond with a DHCP request to accept the IP address. And then the DHCP server will reply back with a DHCP ACK to acknowledge the IP address was assigned to the user.